Karine Jean-Pierre's embarrassing rejection from daytime TV show where she hoped to be a big star. Okay, so she was looking for a gig on The View. I mean, who doesn't aspire to be on The View one day? I'm kidding. It's got to be the worst gig in all of television, seriously. Seriously, even if you're on the side of all the libs, it's got to be the worst. I know it's the worst gig because I have a couple of friends, both Abby and Megan, that worked there. Anyway, this goes on to say that apparently they let it be known that all the spots were taken. So there was no opportunity, if you would, for one KJP on The View. And so, you know, she's probably sitting there going, why can't I get a big TV job? For goodness sakes, you get Jen Psaki taking over for none other than Rachel Maddow. I mean, that's not going so well. We talked about that yesterday, right? I mean, the ratings are so dismal that some people are saying, can we get Rachel Maddow back? That's how bad it is. I mean, they may actually have to put the network out of business before going forward with their verdant MSNBC spinoff thing. I mean, get rid of MSNBC, right? Keep CNBC, keep some of the other things like Oxygen, Sci-Fi, and do something that's a little healthy for investors, because I don't think you're going to ever see the light of day in terms of making a profit over at MSNBC these days, especially with the likes of Jen Psaki in the primetime slot. She's just not talented. Like, just not. Like, it's really funny how these executives in television, like, don't get it. Like, they just don't know what's ever going to resonate. I will tell you, like, I don't like Rachel Maddow, but she could craft a hell of a narrative. She could, you know, go way down the rabbit hole. And she took us pretty far down, right? With all her conspiracy junk about Russia. I was like, what? They're calling us conspiracy theorists? Like, has anybody listened to this lady? But it was clever and it was entertaining. And she got a number, but this lady can't. Meanwhile, this lady, one Jen Psaki, with the gig that KJP wishes she had, is gonna get called in as well. Trust me, a lot of questions for her. And she's already trying to, shall we say, cover her bases. Trying to say, well, don't say it was a cover-up. I mean, that sounds like Watergate, right? I've played this, but we got to watch it again together right now, because you got to think about what's heading her way.
I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that, or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
Like, do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're pretending otherwise, versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right? We're talking, when people use that term.
They say it's worse than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to Watergate, or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term.
So don't you dare use it, okay? Not when you're talking about me. I wouldn't cover anything up. This wouldn't be like Watergate, except, what do you know? The guy who wrote the book, and he's kind of a lib himself, although he's recognized reality, which is that he was part of the problem, right? A big part of the problem, one Jake Tapper, until his buddy George Clooney and David Plouffe and maybe David Axelrod and Obama behind the scenes took him aside and said, you know what, Joe's not going to win, which means Trump's going to win. So we better do something. And that's when they initiated the whole coup. I mean, it was a coup, guys. Don't kid yourself. Trying to put Kamala in there, of course. If they had allowed Joe to stay, right? If Joe had ever won again, to me, that was kind of a coup as well, because he wasn't actually doing anything. And this is what Tapper has exposed, to the point where even he says, you better believe it, it was worse than Watergate.
It is a scandal.
Yes.
It is without question, and maybe even worse than Watergate in some ways.
Right.
Because Richard Nixon was in control of his faculties when he wasn't drinking. And, so the idea that, we don't mean to exonerate. The only reason that we have the Watergate thing is there because we quote Archibald Cox, who was a Watergate investigator, talking about how powerful the presidency is and how presidents get surrounded by people who have a vested interest in keeping that president propped up. So that's the only reason we invoke Watergate, is just to make clear, like, it's not Watergate. Right. This is an entirely separate scandal. Maybe even worse. Maybe even worse.
Ooh, I think it might just be.